Imagine stepping out your front door right now. It's Thursday, February 12th, 2026. You're in New York City, and the air, it's not just cold. It's physically painful.
It really is. We are deep in the middle of a historic freeze. It's been more than 10 days now, just locked in.
But this deep dive isn't really about the weather forecast. It's about what happens when a freeze like this collides with a brand new political experiment.
And it's a collision that's turning deadly. I mean, while most of us are just cranking the heat, there's this grim reality unfolding on the streets.
Which realm are we talking?
We have confirmed reports that 18 people have died during this cold snap.
18. In just over a week.
That's right. Most of them from hypothermia. They were found on, park benches and subway doorways, just huddled on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And this is all happening against the backdrop of this massive shift in how the city is run.
That's the core conflict we're unpacking today. There's a new mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He's been in office for, 6 weeks?
About 6 weeks, yeah. He ran on this platform of radical compassion, change the way the city treats the homeless, less policing, more understanding.
But reality has a way of hitting back.
Well, as the saying goes, man plans, God laughs. Or in this case, nature freezes. Mamdani is facing what people are calling a baptism by ice. His ideology is crashing headfirst into the hard reality of actually governing.
We've got a stack of sources today that paint a pretty intense picture. We're looking at reporting from City Journal, the Post-Millennial, Amsterdam News, and City Limits.
And we're going to break this down into 3 main areas. First, this whole no sweeps policy and why critics are saying it's actually leading to these deaths.
And second, there's this mixed messaging, the whole 311 versus 911 thing, which is causing a ton of confusion.
And finally, you have to follow the money. Because a massive campaign promise on housing vouchers just kind of evaporated because of a $7 billion budget deficit.
It's the classic story, campaigning in poetry.
And governing in prose. Except here, the prose is turning out to be incredibly expensive and, frankly, dangerous.
Okay, so let's start with the immediate crisis. The bodies on the street. To get why this is happening, we need to look at the policy shift. From the last mayor to this one.
You really do have to look at the contrast. The previous mayor, Eric Adams, had a very specific and often controversial strategy. He called them sweeps.
The encampment clearings, right? I remember that.
Exactly. If there was a tent city or some makeshift shelter on a sidewalk, police and sanitation would go in and clear it out.
And his argument was what?
It was pretty straightforward. It's unsafe and it's inhumane to let a person live in a cardboard box on the street. You just can't let people normalize that level of destitution.
But Mamdani ran against that. He called it cruel.
He did. His whole argument was that sweeps just traumatize people. You destroy what little they have, you scatter them, and this is the key part, you break any trust you might have had.
His philosophy is you can't help someone if they're terrified of you.
Right. So his first big move was to put a moratorium on sweeps. No more tearing down tents.
On the surface, that sounds compassionate. You treat people with dignity. You don't bulldoze their lives.
It appeals to our sense of empathy, for sure. But this is where the City Journal and conservative critics like Nicole Gelinas are raising a massive red flag. They're arguing that there's a fine line between compassion and negligence.
Oh, so?
Well, their argument is that a lot of people living on the street are battling severe mental illness or addiction. They might not be in a position to make rational decisions about their own safety.
So if someone is delusional or high and decides to sleep on a bench in 0-degree weather.
Respecting that choice isn't respecting their freedom. It's watching them die.
And the numbers seem to be backing that critique up, don't they?
The stats are alarming. If you look at the data from, say, 2010 to 2019, New York City averaged about 12 deaths from cold exposure per year.
Wait, say that again? 12 for the whole year?
12 per year on average. We have seen 18 deaths in the last 10 days.
That's a staggering increase.
It is. And critics argue this is the direct result of the no sweeps policy. When you remove that pressure to move, people stay put. And when the temperature drops to single digits, staying put is a death sentence.
The City Journal piece puts it pretty bluntly.
It does. It asks, is it better to be free and frozen or coerced and alive?
That's a heavy question. But Mamdani's not just doing nothing right. The administration has to be responding to this.
Oh, they are. They've mobilized what they call peer outreach teams. These are people who have been homeless themselves. They go out, try to build a rapport, encourage people to come inside.
Okay.
They've opened 65 warming centers. Mamdani is out there himself saying, I am the mayor. It's my job to hear them.
So he's trying to use persuasion instead of force.
He's betting everything on persuasion. But the critique is that persuasion takes time. You build trust over weeks, maybe months. Hypothermia kills you in hours.
Which brings us to this confusion on the ground, this whole 3/11 versus 9/11 thing. I have to be honest, if I saw someone passed out in the snow, I'm not sure which one I'd call.
And you are not alone. This is being called a messaging disaster. Mayor Mamdani went on TV and explicitly told New Yorkers, if you see someone in need, call 311.
Right, and for our listeners, 311 is the non-emergency line. It's for noise complaints, potholes, that sort of thing.
Correct. When you call 311, a dispatcher might eventually send a social worker. When you call 911, you get EMS and the police immediately.
So why on earth would the mayor tell people to call the non-emergency line for a person who is freezing?
Because ideologically, he wants to keep the police out of it. His administration believes homelessness is a social issue, not a criminal one. Sending cops, in their view, just escalates things. So he's directing people to the soft response.
But if someone is lying on the concrete in this weather, isn't that a medical emergency by definition?
That is exactly what the critics are screaming. I mean, if you have hypothermia, your brain function slows down. You might just look like you're sleeping, but you could be actively dying.
You might not even be able to ask for help.
Right. And by telling the public to call 311, the administration is effectively downgrading the urgency. They're signaling this isn't a life or death rescue. It's a quality of life issue.
It feels like they're prioritizing the optics of not using police over the reality of the medical danger.
That's the core accusation. And here's where it gets really contradictory. Despite all this talk about voluntary services and not using force, the city did involuntarily transport at least 29 people to hospitals during this freeze.
Wait, so they are using force?
As a last resort. But think about the signal that sends. The mayor campaigns on no involuntary removals. Then he tells the public, call 311. But then when the body count starts rising, they quietly start grabbing people anyway.
It sounds like they're trying to have it both ways. They want the credit for being progressive, but they're forced to use the old methods because the new ones aren't working fast enough.
And it leaves everyone confused. The police don't know if they should intervene. The outreach workers are overwhelmed. And you, the public, don't know if you're saving a life or harassing someone by calling for help.
Okay, so the streets are chaotic. But let's look at the long game. Mamdani's big pitch wasn't just about sweeps. It was about housing. He said he had the real solution.
Housing first. That's the mantra. The idea is simple. You fix homelessness by giving people homes.
And the main tool for that was supposed to be the City FHEPS program.
City FHEPS. It's a mouthful.
Break it down for us.
It stands for City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement. But basically, it's a rental voucher. The city pays a huge chunk of the rent so a homeless family or individual can get an apartment.
And Mamdani promised a big expansion of this.
Oh, he didn't just promise. It was the centerpiece of his campaign. The city council had passed bills to massively expand it, make thousands more people eligible. The old administration sued to stop it, said it cost too much. Mamdani said, vote for me, I'll drop the lawsuit, we'll get everyone housed.
A very clear promise.
Crystal clear. But then he got into City Hall and he opened the books. And what he saw must have terrified him.
A budget deficit.
A $7 billion deficit. But it's not just that. It's the runaway cost of the program itself. This is where let's call it the socialist dream, just smacks into a fiscal wall.
Okay, walk us through the numbers.
In 2019, this voucher program cost the city about $25 million. Manageable. Sure. By 2025, that cost had exploded to $1.25 billion.
Was that a 50-fold increase in just 6 years?
It's completely unsustainable growth. But the expansion Mamdani promised. The Independent Budget Office projected it would cost $17 billion over the next 5 years.
$17 billion.
But the city doesn't have it. It's not there. We're not talking about trimming a little fat here. We're talking about bankrupting the city. You'd have to lay off cops, close firehouses, stop picking up the trash. The math was impossible.
Because what do you do?
He blinked. The latest reports from the Post-Millennial and City Limits confirm he's reneging on the promise. He's not dropping the lawsuit. He's actually using it as leverage to try and negotiate a settlement to scale the program back.
That has to be devastating for his base. He ran as a democratic socialist.
It's seen as a massive betrayal. You have advocates like Christine Quinn from WIN, a major shelter provider, who are
What's
furious.
their argument?
Her argument, and it's a valid economic theory, is that vouchers are actually cheaper than shelters in the long run. A shelter bed costs a fortune every night. A voucher is less. So she's saying he's being penny wise and pound
But you
foolish.
have to have the cash for the vouchers right now.
Exactly. You can't pay a landlord with future savings. And on the flip side, the conservatives are just looking at this and saying, we told you so.
Right.
The post-millennial frames it as proof that the progressive agenda was a fantasy from the start. They argue Mamdani promised the moon, and now he has to act like a fiscal conservative because he has no choice.
It's fascinating. He's managed to anger the people who voted for him, and the people who didn't vote for him are just saying, I told you so. He's kind of on an island.
And that isolation is becoming visible in his team. We just had a major resignation. Molly Wasseau Park, the commissioner of the Department of Social Services,
She was the head of all this.
the point person. Now, to be fair, she was an appointee from the Adams administration who stayed on for the transition. But for her to resign right now, in the middle of this freeze, it speaks volumes.
She cited uncertainty, I think.
Taxing uncertainty. That is bureaucratic code for, I cannot do my job under these conditions. When your top general quits in the middle of a battle, you know you're in trouble.
It feels like he's just being squeezed from every possible direction.
He is. On his left, you have politicians like Tiffany Caban demanding more spending, less policing. They see the deaths as a reason to double down on the ideology.
We need more housing faster.
Exactly. And on the right, and I think increasingly in the center, you have the general public. They see bodies on the street, they see the budget exploding, and they're demanding order. They're asking, why did we vote for a philosophy that seems to be making things worse?
And this brings us right back to that core tension we mentioned at the start, the whole housing first idea versus the reality of severe mental illness.
This is the crux of the whole debate. Mamdani's view, and the view of many progressives, is that the root cause of homelessness is a lack of housing. Give someone a key to a door, they'll stabilize.
It's a logical chain. No home, you're homeless. Give home, problem solved.
But the conservative critique, the one you see in City Journal, it challenges that very premise. They argue that for the chronic street homeless, the people dying in this freeze, the root cause isn't a lack of real estate. It's untreated schizophrenia. It's severe fentanyl addiction.
Their point being, if you give a voucher to someone who is fighting those demons, the voucher is just a piece of paper.
Precisely. If someone is too delusional to sign a lease or too addicted to maintain a household, housing first is a meaningless slogan. The argument is you need treatment first. You need intervention. You need, and this is the controversial word, asylums, or at least secure facilities where people can be stabilized. Involuntarily, if necessary.
But Mamdani is ideologically opposed to that. He sees involuntary commitment as a violation of civil rights.
And while that debate rages in City Hall housing first versus treatment first, liberty versus safety, the temperature is dropping, the tragedy is that these are long-term policy debates happening during an immediate acute crisis. You can't debate philosophy when people are freezing to death.
It really just highlights the difference between being a campaigner and being a mayor. A campaigner gets to talk about ideal worlds. A mayor has to deal with the messy, frozen, expensive, real one.
That's the lesson here. Ideology is clean. Governance is dirty. Mamdani wanted to be the mayor of compassion. But right now, the city is asking if his version of compassion is actually lethal.
So as we wrap this up, what should we be thinking about? We're not in City Hall making these calls, but we live here.
I think we have to confront a very uncomfortable question about our own values. We all say we value freedom, we value civil liberties. We don't want the government locking people up just because they're poor.
Of course not.
But you have to look at the result. If the compassionate approach, the one that protects the freedom to refuse shelter, results in 18 people freezing to death on the sidewalk, does our definition of compassion need to change?
So you're asking if the freedom to stay on the street is a freedom worth protecting if the outcome is death.
I am. Is it truly compassionate to let someone die with their rights intact? Or is the truer compassion doing the hard thing, maybe even the mean thing, and forcing them inside to keep them alive?
That's a question I think is going to haunt this administration for a very long time.
The number suggests it already is.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. It's a tough topic, but a really important one. Stay warm, and we'll see you next time.